But thank you so much for having me. I would have really liked to have been there in person to be with you all today. But also, since I'm the first speaker, I just wanted to start us off by reminding us that AI is a whole constellation of technologies and ideas. And when I refer to artificial intelligence, I think of it as the use of sensors and machine learning algorithms and computer vision and natural language processing, all of these methods that are used to undertake advanced data analytics and then can feed back into predictions, automated decision making, and those decisions are then further enacted by people or actuators like robot arms or other systems and structures. And I realized that lately we're probably all thinking and hearing a lot about generative AI, or now what the Safety Summit and the government is calling frontier AI, which is a bit ridiculous. But anyhow, this is a newer subset of artificial intelligence models, which are said to produce new content ranging from text, images to music and other forms of data. In the middle is the EU definition, and I think the value of taking the EU's definition is that it situates artificial intelligence into a system, like an education system that we're talking about today. And you'll also notice in these definitions that they describe what AI does rather than what it is. And according to the UK, it replaces people. And according to the EU, it takes actions in an environment with some degree of autonomy. And with generative AI, it produces new content. And in all these cases, the role that our student would play in the future is therefore in flux, which I find interesting. And so one of the things that I've been thinking about, and it's still really not clear to me in terms of how to approach AI in education, is really how much do people need to know about AI to be able to use it, to benefit from it, to be harmed by it, or to make it themselves. And we don't necessarily need to know how the internal parts of a computer work or how our mobile phones work to be able to use it or benefit from it. But we're questioning now, maybe we should. So how do we figure this out? And I want to go back a few years to explain how I got into the area of artificial intelligence. My background is actually in technology within international development and education. But a few years ago, I started working for the 3A Institute at Australian National University. And throughout the 2 years I was there, we were working as a group of multidisciplinary researchers who were tasked with creating a new branch of engineering to take AI safely, ethically, and responsibly to scale. And we thought that instead of framing what people need to know about AI to use it or benefit from it, you don't necessarily need to know how it works or how its inners work, but you do need to be able to ask good questions around it, which may involve some of that understanding. And so we were building on the 3A framework, which was coming from our director, Genevieve Bell, who started the 3A Institute around those three themes: autonomy, agency, and assurance. And over the 3 years, that we worked, we added another 3 I's. And you can watch her TED Talk, which describes it in more detail. But it's essentially a question-asking framework. The 3 A's: autonomy, how autonomous is artificial intelligence? Can AI make decisions or act in the environment without human oversight? Agency, how much agency do we give AI? Are there guardrails around it so that the AI is not making decisions or acting in ways that it shouldn't be? And likewise, how much should our students be able to offload their agency to AI? And the third A is assurance. And we've been hearing a lot in the past few days about the Safety Summit. We're seeing how we think about safety, who gets to think about safety, what are their definitions of safety, and how and security, and how are they thinking it should be built into the system is making a real difference. And the way that they're discussing risks and who gets to define those risks and prioritize them. All of these aspects around AI matters. And then in terms of the I's, the next one is indicators. So how are we going to measure or optimize AI for its success? So given generative AI works only most of the time right now, are we happy with that? Are we just going to be accepting of its cultural homogenization and so forth? And then the next question is around interfaces. Like, how do people interact with AI? How does AI interact with other AI or with our systems? What happens if we use generative AI, for example, to support our student services? And how would those new systems interface with our existing institutional systems? I can hear everybody almost getting a headache already. But then lastly, and most importantly, is intent. We need to question what the intended purposes of the AI is. And I think we're also seeing a lot around this in terms of how OpenAI, or the company that created ChatGPT, for example, they started as a not-for-profit company, and they've now seemed to pivot to be towards making a profit. And they've been capturing a lot of the public discourse around generative AI and promoting this idea of existential threats to humanity. And their whole business models is about developing superintelligence. And what does that mean for humans? Like, what is the impact of generative AI on potentially de-skilling humans or our students? And this essentially, therefore, leads to my next point, which is around what will knowledge therefore look like. And I found this article by Manas Dave and Neil Patel in Nature. And this article was completely generated by ChatGPT. And the authors had some reflections in the notes about what that entailed, some of the struggles they went through, or like the principles that they used when creating the article through prompting. And I'm sure many of you have already used ChatGPT before, and you probably know kind of what you get back, which is a very general description of common findings. And in this article, they discuss the technological themes in research that are popular. But the discussion is placeless, it's faceless, and there's no provenance of ideas. There's absolutely no academic literature cited in this piece, and I don't know where any of the information comes from. So it definitely lacks a critical discussion or anything that we as educators or people with doctoral degrees, what we might have learned in our education about how to build a good argument or how to contribute to knowledge. And so if this is the pathway that we're headed, where we're just going to take for granted what the AI is telling us is knowledge, it's a concern to me. And of course, we should also be concerned about other aspects of AI related to what Carolyn Criado Perez in her book calls the amplification effect of AI. And I'm sure you've heard of this tendency for AI to be biased against underrepresented people or knowledge systems because of how AI is often trained on biased data. But her point is striking because it shows how AI not only replicates bias, but amplifies it. And what I think is even more important to remember in the context of education relates to how we've seen in the past that any technology can be an amplifier of existing inequalities. When AI is thrown at successful students, a good bet is that they'll be even more successful. And likewise, that students that are struggling may face even greater disadvantage. And what I think is important to remember from Kentaro Toyama's point is that it might be beneficial to think about amplification effects of AI as being moderated by three things, which are access, capacity, like can students use it, take advantage of it, or even protect themselves, and then motivation, like how are students finding meaning for their learning in and through the use or abuse of AI. So what this means is that regardless of any new type of technology, whether it's generative AI or a future type of AI that we don't yet know, we have to acknowledge that it's not going to magically provide a solution for broken or missing institutional elements in our education systems. And so ultimately, drawing on these experiences and in collaboration with a bunch of brilliant colleagues, we developed a framework for responsible AI education, which is centered on developing the power and position of our students to interrogate how AI is impacting on our lives and society, which should help bring about a critical awareness of issues within our systems and structures and how AI can amplify them, or how AI can be changed or reoriented to help fix them or to protect and empower them. So the framework combines a responsible research and innovation approach with critical pedagogy, and it's really about encouraging any education setting to help students ask questions about AI, around how AI is shaping or changing our educational activities, and we need to make the way that AI is being designed or developed visible within our educational activities as part of these reflections as well. And importantly, how their own power and position is also helped or hindered in relation to whether they choose to engage with AI or not.